The fake HOA cop wrapped his hand around my visitor's throat, squeezing, smirking, acting like he owned the sidewalk, completely unaware that the woman he was putting his hands on was the most feared FBI agent in the entire district. And the moment she tilted her head and smiled at him, his fate was already sealed. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. Because to understand why Agent Nyla Graves didn't panic, why she didn't scream or even blink as his grip tightened, you need the backstory. And trust me, this didn't start with the choking. It started 2 months ago with HOA President Karen Selby, the most control-obsessed person our neighborhood had ever seen. She treated the HOA like her personal military. She created rules out of thin air, barked orders like she was running a boot camp, and carried a clipboard like it was a weapon. And lately, she'd become obsessed with visitors. Not loud visitors, not dangerous visitors, just visitors. She announced some ridiculous new HOA policy. All guests must register at the community kiosk for security purposes, which really meant Karen wanted control. Karen wanted power. Karen wanted to know who came to my house, land the HOA didn't even own. I ignored every warning she sent. 3 emails, 4 printed notices, and 1 voicemail where she hissed, "If you keep letting unauthorized people onto the property, we will take action." I laughed. I shouldn't have. Because that action came in the form of Karen's little creation, the HOA enforcement unit, 2 thick-necked wannabe cops in cheap navy vests with HOA cop ironed onto the back. They patrolled the neighborhood like mall cops with anger issues. They harassed delivery drivers. They interrogated teenagers walking home. They even threatened a neighbor's grandma for parking at an unapproved angle. And when they learned I had ignored visitor registration requirements, they lost their minds. That morning, I invited Nyla Graves over for coffee, my longtime friend, my closest confidant, and one of the FBI's most feared interrogators, a woman whose name alone made actual criminals confess before she even asked a question. But to these HOA idiots, she was just another unregistered guest. Nyla arrived 10 minutes early. She stepped out of her car, calm, checking messages on her phone, sipping the last of her iced coffee. That's when the first fake cop marched up, chest puffed, barking, "Stop right there! Visitors must check in at the HOA kiosk before stepping onto any property." Nyla didn't even look up at first. "HOA doesn't regulate this house," she said smoothly. "Your rules don't apply here." The second fake cop took a step closer. "Visitors must comply. Failure to do so is a violation." Nyla sighed. "You don't have the authority for any of this. Now step back." And that's when the first one snapped. He lunged forward, grabbed her by the throat, and squeezed hard. Nyla's eyes narrowed. Her hand wrapped around his wrist, calm, cold, controlled. She leaned in just enough for him to hear her whisper, "You have 3 seconds to let go, or you won't like what happens next." The other fake cop smirked. In the next few minutes, these 2 fake HOA cops would regret everything. The fake HOA cop tightened his grip around Nyla's throat, fingers digging in like he was trying to prove something. His buddy, the one with the cheap sunglasses and the puffed-out chest, just kept smirking, arms folded like he was enjoying a show. They had no idea what kind of show they'd stepped into. I stepped onto the porch the moment I heard Nyla's voice change. Not fear, but warning. The tone she only used when someone was seconds away from regretting their life choices. "Hey!" I shouted. "Get your hands off her!" The one choking her turned his head slightly like he couldn't believe anyone dared interrupt his power trip. "This is HOA business," he barked. "Stay out of it!" Nyla didn't wait for permission. She never does. Her hand slid up his arm with surgical precision. She rotated her wrist, hooked her thumb under his knuckle, and twisted. Crack! The sound echoed off the driveway. The fake HOA cop screamed, stumbling backward, cradling his now bent wrist like it wasn't supposed to bend that way, because it wasn't. The smirking cop's grin vanished instantly. He scrambled backward, hand flying to his hip where a cheap pistol sat, half tucked into the vest like a toy. "Don't move," he yelled, voice shaking now. "You're under HOA arrest. HOA authority overrides." He didn't even finish before Nyla closed the distance. 1 second she was beside the first guy. The next, she was right in front of him. He panicked and yanked the pistol upward. Hands clumsy, grip sloppy, no discipline at all. Nyla slapped his wrist aside, spun the gun from his hand like she was flicking a crumb off a countertop, and caught the pistol midair. He blinked. She didn't. Bang! The round tore into his shoulder. Not fatal, not even close, but enough to send him flying back against the HOA SUV with a howl that rattled the windows. He collapsed to the ground, clutching the wound, legs kicking like he was trying to swim out of the pain. The first fake cop, wrist mangled, face pale, tried to crawl away. Nyla walked toward him slowly, predator slow, unhurried, certain. "Stay back," he squeaked, dragging himself across the concrete. "I'm warning you." She crouched beside him. "Warning me?" she repeated. "Sweetheart, you laid hands on a federal agent." He froze. "What What do you mean, federal? She didn't answer. The second fake cop tried to stand, shaking, bleeding, using the SUV door for balance. You can't do this, he cried. We work for the HOA. We have authority. Nyla raised the pistol slightly, not aiming, just reminding him she could. He shut up instantly. Authority? She said. Let's talk about authority. She reached into her jacket. Both men held their breath. She pulled out her badge. FBI. The letters glinted in the sun. Her voice dropped to that cold, merciless tone only criminals usually hear. Congratulations, you just assaulted a federal agent. Both men's faces drained white. The one with the broken wrist started shaking so hard his vest rattled. The shot one whispered, We're dead. Nyla stood tall, badge in one hand, pistol in the other. Behind us, the distant rise of police sirens echoed closer. Fast. They must have heard the gunshot. She glanced toward the road and said calmly, Good. They're right on time. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe because the story is only going to get better. The police cruisers tore around the corner so fast their tires screamed, blue lights washing across the houses like rolling thunder. By the time they stopped at the end of my driveway, both fake HOA cops were on the ground, one clutching his shot shoulder, the other rocking back and forth with his shattered wrist tucked into his vest like a broken wing. Nyla stood calmly between them, badge out, pistol held low and safe. When the officers stepped out, they didn't even need to ask who was in charge. Agent Nyla Graves spoke first. These two assaulted a federal agent, attempted to detain a private citizen under false authority, and pulled an unregistered firearm. One is injured by his own weapon. Secure them. The officers exchanged one look that, oh, they're screwed look, then moved. The shot HOA cop tried to protest as they cuffed him. This wasn't our fault. We were following HOA orders. President Selby told us to remove any visitors that didn't register. Officer Hayes tightened the cuffs another notch. Buddy, you could have just stayed home today. The one with the broken wrist started crying the moment they touched him. She said we had arrest powers. She said the HOA rules override homeowners. She said visitors were trespassers. Nyla crouched beside him just long enough for him to look into her eyes, the same eyes that made grown criminals confess entire felonies in under 10 minutes. Karen Selby lied to you, she said, and you chose to believe her. That's on you, not her. The man swallowed hard. She said the HOA had more power than local law enforcement. Nyla smirked. And you thought that sounded real? Interesting. 10 minutes later, the ambulance arrived and loaded up the shot cop. The other was taken away in a separate cruiser, still whimpering, still mumbling excuses. But the real storm hit 20 minutes later. A black SUV rolled onto the street, FBI plates. Karen Selby stepped outside her house the second she heard commotion. Hair in a perfect bun, clipboard tucked under her arm like she was prepared to take charge of the police scene. The moment she saw Nyla, she froze. Then she forced a smile. Nyla Graves, I didn't know you were visiting. If your friend had registered his visitor, this wasn't a misunderstanding, Nyla cut in. This was an attempted abduction. Karen blinked hard. Abduction? No. My officers were simply enforcing HOA guidely. Nyla raised one eyebrow. Your officers assaulted a federal agent. Your officers attempted to detain someone on private property. Your officers used an unregistered firearm. Karen's fake smile began to crack. And, Nyla added sharply, you sent them. Karen opened her mouth, but the FBI agents stepping out of the SUV beat her to it. Karen Selby, he said, you're under arrest for conspiracy, ordering unlawful detention, impersonation of law enforcement through your agents, and coercion of private citizens. Karen tried to step back. No, you can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president. Nyla actually laughed. Lady, that title means nothing. The agents cuffed Karen as she screamed, kicked at the ground, and shouted something about community authority. Neighbors filmed the entire thing. By sunset, the HOA was officially suspended. By morning, Karen was in federal holding. Sentences. Karen Selby, 11 years in federal prison for ordering the attack on a federal agent. The fake HOA cop who grabbed Nyla's throat. 8 years for felony assault and impersonating law enforcement. The fake HOA cop who got shot. 5 years under a plea deal for aiding the attempted assault. By the end of the week, every homeowner received a letter. The HOA enforcement unit is permanently dissolved. All involved personnel have been charged. Karen Selby has been removed from the board. Peace returned instantly. Nyla and I sat on my porch the next day, coffee mugs in hand. She smirked. You know, she said, he really thought choking me was a smart move. I snorted. He had no idea who he grabbed. She clinked her mug against mine. And now, everyone does. And that's how two fake HOA cops learn the hard way. You don't put your hands on an FBI agent and walk away smiling. What do you think, folks? Did Nyla go too easy on them? Or should she have finished what she started? What would you have done? I would love to know. The end.